teaser trailer has dropped, but I have to forewarn, it's really just a few tidbits. A full-blown trailer will be dropped after this, so that presumably will answer a few more questions. But we get a lot of good stuff in terms of callbacks and fan service, so that's the kind of LOTR fan you are. They did give a whole bushel. So what is the essence of this? Well, the essence is that the Hobbit says something about the sky. We see shots of Galadriel and some of the others traveling somewhere. And then we get shots of Elrond, and the sustaining narrative is they're looking at the sky at this meteor. And we end presumably with Muriel and with the Ents and one of the female hobbits, and they're looking up at the sky. So the main question would be, who is the Meteor Man? I do find it funny, though, that the hate channels, who are going on with the feminist, communist conspiracy stuff, they are assuming it's a Meteor Man. I thought it was being taken over by the women. So, to be fair, they are trying to slip in some non-canonical things. Like, there's a tower they sustain a shot on. As far as I know, that's not canonical. And of course, some of the characters here are not canonical at all. They're kind of mixing what is in the canon, which are clearly the Ents. Like, almost everyone agrees the Ents belong here. They're among some of the oldest creatures in Middle-earth, so their being here is not a big issue. But going further than that, didn't really offer very much. The only dialogue is from the Black Hobbit, and it's very short. But we are getting the impression that they all know this meteor event happens. The Dwarves. So the guess that it's Sauron in disguise wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, because at least if they're following the Silmarillion broadly, right? They can't really tap into it, but using the appendices and that, Sauron, from the way I read it, he crept in. He was being very sneaky and slowly seduced and corrupted people. So him putting on a big light show wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'd say it's probably going to be Gandalf or one of the wizards. The Astari, or the Five, who we don't really know too much about. So technically they can be almost anything. I mean, it could be Saruman too, but that would, again, a lot of guesses about who or what it is. I would guess it would have to be a magical being who can do shape-shifting and is very powerful. I mean, they can survive this impact, so they're pretty clearly not human. And it would not make sense for them to be an elf or dwarf. It's a lot of names on the list, but I don't think it would be Sauron. Which brings up the question, who is going to be the antagonist for Season 1? Well, it would be too soon for Sauron, because they still have to construct the rings. So it'd be interesting how fast they get to it, because we do see the dwarf, and it seems pretty obvious they're implying the construction of the rings will happen fast. But I don't think it would make sense for it all to be crunched into Season 1. So it's not likely that Sauron will be the main person in Season 1. He'll probably be shape-shifting in the background, taking on various personas, but I don't think he will be the main antagonist. So that leaves very few other candidates, because they can't use Morgoth, because he's been defeated by this time period. So it's not a lot of other options. It's actually also very curious they didn't use the orcs. They were pumping out and promoting the orcs before this, including the female orcs, but no, we don't see any orcs. It's a little haphazard about what they're showing and not showing. I did find it very significant. We do see Galadriel without the armor, and she looks amazing. She looks beautiful. Probably the only thing in terms of canon that did seem a little suspicious is the heights of the elves is too small. They should be a lot taller. So whatever complaints people have about the women or the black people or whatever, they're too small. They should be a lot bigger. I also find it funny people who are crying and moaning and tearing up, like, where's my Peter Jackson? Where's my Peter Jackson? Where's the Lord of the Rings film trilogy? These images are actually trying to compromise, because they don't fit the books, but they do look like the Jackson films. And some of the more grandiose idiots like Nerdrotic are like, I even admit it. They're not going to do the Peter Jackson. They admitted it. They admit it. They can't do the Peter Jackson stuff, you moron. There's copyright and trademark. If they try to imitate the Peter Jackson stuff, they would get sued. That's the law. You can't do that. You can only take certain elements of another production, but beyond a certain point, that's a lawsuit. So they're forbidden from doing that. But it does appear that they kind of do look like the Lord of the Rings elves. Broadly, it seems they're trying to get both fandoms. Some of the alleged book people are getting really offended, and I'm sure a lot of the Peter Jackson people don't want to watch this, or they say they don't want to watch this. Although, interestingly, the Weta people that Peter Jackson they're working on this, and even some Lord of the Rings production people are on this production. So I don't know. It's a lot of contradictions in terms of what the fandom wants, but it does feel like this was very fan servicey, and it didn't give us much in terms of the substance of the story. And during this time period, not much should be happening. So it'll be interesting what they're going to create or invent to juice up the drama. But no major clues about who the Meteor Man is. But I'm going to put probably as one of the wizards. It's not Sauron. That's my best guesstimate. And what is coming next with Rings of Power?